So I'm going to make a defense of the Bible, and it's not going to be what most people would do in this situation, just the Bible is the Bible, and you got to believe the Bible because the Bible says. Why does the Bible say? Okay, just stop using that redundant argument. Get people to the water. Like, you got to get them to the water. You got to convince them that they're thirsty before they're going to drink. You know what I mean? So why do I believe the Bible? Well, it's really 3 reasons. And the first is specifically Jesus. I've done a whole work on his genius. So go back and watch that video on Jesus' genius. That'll explain why I believe in Jesus. I'm not going to get into that in this video. The second reason is the fact that the entire Bible is witness testimony, and we know that. Like, I have seen hundreds of archaeological artifacts that directly corroborate claims in the Bible, even some very specific things, and it's just too much to ignore. And the Gospels, again, we have Papias, who tells us who wrote 3 of them. One of them actually Papias dictated through John the Apostle, and then of course Luke. It's right there in the Gospel that Luke accompanied Paul, who knew Peter, Mary, and James, and John, maybe even Jude, I don't know. I think Paul said he never met Jude. So, you know, it's that reason why I believe the Bible, is that coupled with the fact that the Bible we know is actually witness. It's the fact that what we see in the archaeological record, which they will move entire cities to hide from you. They moved Nueva Beach to the other isthmus on the Red Sea. And that they did. I caught them doing it. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. So be careful. A lot of this evidence gets buried. It gets destroyed. Like, there's a good story of 2 archaeologists. They found this stone that fit perfectly in this little groove. And it just frustrated this other archaeologist so much that he picked it up and he threw it over the bank and broke it. They don't want God to be real. That's the thing you have to understand. They don't want God to be real, and they're going to do everything they can to try to hide him from you. Okay? They're going to do everything they can to try to hide him from you. Everything they possibly can. So that's a fact, that the Bible is A, witnesses, and B, it's got a perfect ethics that's described by Jesus. Like I said, Jesus is my first reason. My third reason is that the Bible has a perfect ethics. Even the old law of the Torah, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I say that the Torah is descriptive, but I think it's descriptive of the way I would really like to behave and function. Like, obviously someone comes and destroys something of mine, I want to take retribution. If someone, like, I don't want, even the more complex laws like genocide, they kind of make sense because, like, that's what people actually do. It's just what people actually do. I mean, they if there's war, that's what war is. It's genocide. It cannot be anything else. So I hate to say it like that. Like, people, like, we in the West, we have this, like, very sheltered view of war until it, like Tolstoy says, until it, like, blows up and becomes, like, this huge problem, and then we're, like, aghast at what happened. But that's human nature. It's just, you know, when people act weird and they're dangerous, the other society is like, yeah, we don't really think these guys are really healthy. They come in and they sweep it up. Or you have a really dangerous society that's, like, making war on all of its neighbors, and their neighbors come in and destroy them. It's just how the world works. It's like the Bible describes how the world works. It's why it's offensive is because nobody ever liked to see the way the world worked. That's why a lot of classic literature is offensive too, because they don't like to see how the world actually works. They want to have this, like, lenses, they say it in postmodern philosophy. They want to have lenses instead of corrective lenses. They don't have glasses. They want to have like tinted glasses. You know, things that warp the world and look like a funhouse mirror. So that's why I believe in the Bible. But I have to be honest with you, the Bible is not my God. I do not believe in the Bible's inerrancy because it's not inerrant. It's very close. In fact, you can find some very relevant information through the genealogies. That's how I found out the flood was in the 24th century BC. Because I was like, well, if there was a flood, there should be something in the 24th century BC based on my calculations. And sure enough, I went on Wikipedia, there was. That's how I got to the flood. It wasn't like I found the thing and then I got there. Is that I got to the genealogies and then found the 24th century anomaly. That's some crazy stuff. If you find things like that happening, that's the law of equations. When things start equating, then you know they're true. It's just a fact. That's how math works. You only know something by the way it relates to something else. Everything has to equate. And when things start equating, then you have a truth. It's just basically the way logic works. Like, everybody, it also works on self-evidence too, which we'll get into in another time. But we'll get into it right now. Like, I think the principles of the Bible are self-evident. Like, Jesus' sermons, the book of Moses, I think they're self-evident. I think if we really looked at ourselves and we really were like, how do I want the world world to work? Do I want to be striving and fighting and trying to win my battles against everybody, or do I want to have like a kind of, not a selfish culture, but a very happy culture where people agree and get along and they're not predatory? And Jesus' morals aren't very predatory. That's why I like Jesus in general, is because like if you followed his word, there'd be peace. And I think that's the whole point of the New Testament, is to find God's peace and not try to seek your like the Old Testament is like the Jews are trying to like make a perfect world, and they fail when Nebuchadnezzar sacks them because they never really did anything they were supposed to do. So Jesus comes and he redeems us from that law, because that law is meant, and we're all beholden to that law. If we're not saved, we have to basically be Jesus. That's why we need Jesus, so he can be it for us. When Jesus comes back, he's going to destroy. He's not going to come back like he did this time. He's going to be born of the daughter of Zion, a virgin, and he's going to come back and he's going to thresh and destroy. So it's not going to be a happy event when Jesus returns. Particularly as I think he's going to be mad that they went after his mother. That's why I really think he's going to come back and be really angry, because she doesn't want to have his treatment and he's not going to let her. You know what I mean? That's just the fact. They're going to be like, they went after Jesus' mommy, and he's going to come back and he's going to destroy them. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the fact. That's 100% the fact. She's not going to have to suffer for it. He's going to come back and he's going to deliver us and her and the whole world who believes in him. So that's the whole fact. That's the whole fact right there, is that when Jesus comes back, it's not going to be a happy day. It's going to be a very bloody day. And if we are going to be perfect, we have to be able to deliver the world, which we can't. That's why it says, do not gain the whole world and lose your soul, because to gain the whole world, you lose your soul effectively, because you have to try to fix the world, and you can't. It's like you just replace one evil with another, and that's what's been happening throughout all of history, is that you just have in the 1950s racism, in the 1990s and 1980s decadence, in the 1910s and 1920s homosexuality. It's like you have always different things replacing what was before it. In the Elizabethan era, it was just prudishness. It wasn't even so much that they did anything wrong, it was what they didn't allow. And that's why people like Emily Dickinson are so interesting to read, and Frank Baum, because it wasn't necessarily that they were doing anything wrong, but it was that they weren't allowing people to enjoy themselves or have any kind of creativity. So, every generation, there's a new set of rulers, there's a new set of principalities and heirs, and they have different sins that replace the old ones, and they it's just what they've been doing for all of history. But it's getting progressively worse to a point where Jesus is going to have to come back, and I think that's my hope, is that Jesus is good. He's going to deliver his people. As it says, he's going to deliver the captives a second time. That's our hope. And I think that's why I believe in Jesus, is because the world is a mess, and it always was, and it always will be until Jesus comes back and reigns for 1,000 years.